Funding for this video is brought to you by Scentbird. I never knew that my aunt's house smelled like apple cinnamon until one day I was at a friend's house and I bent down to smell their candle and I became a little child again. Like I was playing on their dark hardwood floors with my cousins. I could have sworn the candle was titled Auntie Deb's house. I would have believed you if you said you took it directly from the air in her own kitchen. Did you know that out of your senses, the one that's best at recalling memory is your sense of smell? That's to do with the anatomy of the brain. Processing systems for smell and memory are very close to each other. I like to call them smemories. Now thanks to Scentbird, I have a whole whack of smemories. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service. I've been using it for a long time, so I have probably dozens of fragrances by now. Not full-size ones that cost you $200, but vials that hold 30-day supplies worth, way more than an average perfume tester. Scentbird allows you to try out different perfumes without committing to buying the full bottle. From a plethora of brands, go take a look for yourself down below. They've got Gucci, Prada, Kenneth Cole. This month I tried Confessions of a Rebel, bitch please. Confessions of a Rebel is one of my favorite companies for fragrances. We have Layle, so fresh and bouncy and fun. For just $17, you can give the gift of good smelling to your friends and loved ones this Christmas. Use my code Paige Layle2 and you'll be able to get 55% off your first month. Thank you so much to Scentbird for sponsoring today's video. Be sure that you guys go and click the link down below in the description to get started today. Thank you for listening and watching, and now we can go back to the video. I have to say this is bothering me. Let me turn my fridge off. So, okay. Love is Blind season 3. Okay, Love is Blind season 3. Bartise and Nancy, okay? Crazy, that's a whole separate story. But the conversation that they had about abortion, I want to talk about that conversation. And I want to talk about it right now because I'm watching the reunion, the Love is Blind reunion, right? Oh, well, now I'm too short. Because I'm watching Love is Blind season 3. And we just hit a point where Vanessa Lachey is like, in the pods, you talk about everything you need to do in marriage. Unless you're Nancy and Bartise, because they did not talk about abortion in the pod. So let's talk about their views on abortion right now. And my heart started racing, face was red, and I was sweating. And I'm like, wow, Paige, you are experiencing an emotion right now. I honestly don't know if I want to listen to it because the conversation that they had episodes ago really hurt me and disturbed me. So for those of you who have not seen Love is Blind or who have not seen this episode or don't know what I'm talking about, all you need to know for this conversation we're having is that a couple was having a conversation on their views regarding abortion, specifically if the baby was going to come out disabled. To which the gal, her name's Nancy, who also happens to be a speech pathologist, so predominantly works with disabled children, said that she is all good with aborting a baby if it is disabled. She said that she has seen firsthand what a disabled kid does to a family. No one's happy and everyone hates their fucking kid. I don't know if she said those words exactly. And so she would like to abort a kid if it were to be disabled. Bartise, her fiance, then responded like, oh my God, that's my baby. I could never imagine getting rid of my baby because of that.
I could never do that, but especially knowing that we were trying to have a kid, just abort mission because they're gonna have some challenges and we're gonna have some challenges. I'm mentally tough enough to handle whatever challenge that may present, and I just could never pull the plug like that.
Yeah.
That's fucking rough. I could not do that. I'm sorry.
I mean, obviously it's
Prior to when we went and talked to Bartise's family and his sister, I was like, I'm with Bartise here. What? Yeah, I'd be Bartise too. I'd be like, it's actually eugenics. I heavily disagree of aborting your baby if it is disabled. But what if the family cannot provide for a disabled kid correctly and it just wouldn't be right? Then don't have a kid. Don't have a kid. Don't have a kid. If you're not ready to have a disabled kid, an autistic kid, a trans kid, a gay kid, you do not see disabled people as lesser than, then you don't even think about that being an option. Why is an autistic person more disposable than an allistic person or someone without autism? So after this scene, you know, people took to Twitter and I was surprised, but then again, I was like, Paige, you should stop being surprised at ableism, to see that a lot of people were on Team Nancy. Not because they were on Team ableism or eugenics explicitly, but they saw it as a pro-life versus pro-choice argument. I was seeing tweets saying that Nancy is educated because of her whole abortion thing and how it's a women's rights thing, and that took me for a little loop. I don't think that we can forget that nuance there of the fact that they were specifically talking about disabled kids. I don't even think that it was brought up as a whole in general, what they thought about abortion. And I heard Bartice's answer. I don't think that Bartice is against aborting disabled babies because he's specifically saying, hey, I don't want to abort disabled babies just because they're disabled. I think that given the information that Bartice's sister seemed to provide, his sister just crying about babies being aborted or something, which actually, okay, to be honest, Bartice's sister crying and saying like, this is a very important topic to me and it bothers me that you think that, it could be just because maybe her and Bartice are pro-life. Or to be honest, it could be that her and Bartice are against aborting disabled babies. Do those two things contradict each other? No, I am the same way. I am pro-choice, but I'm also against aborting specifically and purposely disabled babies. What the fuck, Paige? Those two ideas are very different. If I were to be pro-life, let's say, that would be because I would be against abortions. I'm not against abortions. I think there are way too many humans on this planet, and I think most people should not be parents. Our planet is dying. We don't have enough food or gas. No one needs to have more kids. And we do not live in a perfect society. If I knew that every single baby was going to be okay, they were gonna have good education, they were gonna have enough food to eat, they weren't gonna be abused, they weren't gonna be poor, they weren't gonna be treated lesser than, they were gonna have all their rights, they were gonna have the same opportunities as everyone else, they would have loving parents who were smart and educated, I would say, perhaps there's no reasons to have abortions maybe then. But we are not in that world. And no one on this earth should raise a whole human person if they don't want to. If someone does not want to raise a human person, they really should not be raising a human person. Because human people are what make decisions in this earth. And if you raise a human person to be shit, they could make some really fucking bad decisions. We don't have accessible and healthy and good and okay birth control for every person. We don't have enough sex education for every person. We don't have the resources. We don't have the resources for people to not get pregnant. Because ideally, that's what we want to be preventing is unplanned pregnancies. I'm pro-choice, but no one likes abortions, okay? I know a few women that have had abortions. To each one of them, it is the most traumatic and upsetting experience in their life. And every day, still, even 40, 50 years later, they still think about it. And they still are like, am I horrible? Did I make the right choice? And even here in Canada, abortions are free, as are everything else, but not without stigmatization, not without the signs in front of the hospitals, not without people screaming that you're a murderer when you walk into the building. So then why do I feel like we shouldn't abort disabled babies? That kind of sounds a little contradictory. It's not like I'm like, we should see if the baby is disabled and then not abort it if it is disabled, but if it's not disabled, we can abort it. I'm not saying have disabled babies no matter if you want to have a baby or not. If you do not want to create a person, you should not have to, no matter if it's disabled or not. You do not need to be a human incubator. What I'm saying is, if you want to have a baby and you're good to go to have a baby and you're ready for a baby and you get pregnant and you're like, things are good, and then you find out the baby is disabled, and then you want to abort the baby, that's eugenics. That's ableism blatantly. I don't think that there's an argument against that. And I don't think that there are excuses. I don't think that there are valid excuses. I don't think that there is a valid argument that is going to convince me otherwise. I don't think that there is. I've gone through all of them. I've heard what people say to try to combat me on this. And no, straight up. If you don't want to have a kid straight up because the kid's disabled, that's ableist. If you don't want to have a kid just because that kid is trans, that's transphobic. If you don't have a kid just because that kid is black, that's racist. I don't think it's right to be genetically manipulating our society. And I think it's a cop-out to say, nah, I just don't want to. And I don't think that it's fair at all. I really, to be honest, guys, I really don't understand how this is a topic. Disabled people are actually not even people to most people. People on Twitter who are pro-choice, right? So they're more probably left-leaning, as am I, are still okay with eugenics and ableism. She straight up said, if the baby's disabled, I'm not having a disabled kid. And the internet was like, yes, pro-choice queen. Disabled people are natural. We're supposed to be here. we have biodiversity, we have neurodiversity. My brain is very important to be here because my brain does not work like your brain. And both of our kinds of brains are needed to solve different problems. Besides that, disabled people are human beings. Disabled people are not less human than anyone else and do not and should not have less rights than other fetuses. How discriminatory that a disabled fetus gets less rights. I remember my little brother. So when my mom had him, she was 30. 30 was considered really freaking old to have a kid. So she was put in like the old mom ward because she was gonna have a kid when she was 30. They did all these tests on the baby because the likelihood of the child having Down syndrome increases, and it continues to increase as the uterus ages. And I'm pretty sure that it was a blood test or an ultrasound something. It was not an amniocentesis. The doctor said, like, we're 99.99% sure that your baby is autistic. Or not, we're 99.9% sure that your baby has Down syndrome. And because of that, my parents were given some options. The first option was an amniocentesis, which for those who don't know, it's a really big old long needle thing that goes into the uterus and takes out some of the amniotic fluid that the baby is like floating around in. You know, when the water breaks, they take that water out of the uterus and test it. That's because as the baby is in there, they are swallowing and therefore like pooping and vibing inside of this water. It's filled with nutrients, it's filled with them, it's part of them. So by testing that, you can get a much more accurate reading of the genetics of the baby. That being said though, this does not come without its complications. Interrupting that cycle, going into the uterus, taking any amount of the very fluid that is used to cushion the baby and nourish the baby and keep the baby, you know, incubated and soft in their little egg yolk. If you take the white out of an egg and you just got this yolk rolling around inside the egg, it's dangerous. It's dangerous for the baby. My parents said, no, we're fine without that. My doctor, their doctor, who's also my doctor, said that there was also an option to abort the baby. He specifically brought this up. You can abort this baby if you want to. And the abortion time for babies with Down syndrome actually is more than just a whatever baby. They're literally seen as less human. My parents were like, no, we've hoped and prayed for this baby. This is our baby. This is our flesh and blood. We're gonna care for this baby and love this baby no matter what. And Graham came out, and Graham doesn't even have Down syndrome. So they were like, oh, okay, what? Like, they were so fine with it. I love my parents. So anyway, #nervy to watch the rest of this Love is Blind episode, but I do like how so far Bartice is like, this is a private conversation, can we just keep it private, ? Although Bartice is kind of like the worst human being. But yeah, just to remind everyone, especially if you are like, yeah, go Nancy, girl boss, yes, slay queen, pro-choice, love. It's not cool of you to think that aborting disabled babies because they're disabled is okay. That's not cool of you. We're not the same. We're not on the same page with that. Thank you so much to Scentbird for sponsoring today's video. Be sure that you guys go and click the link down below in the description. This is the end of the video song. This video is to tell you the video's done. If you're hearing this, it's because the video's done. Go watch another one. Boop boop. Have a good day. Love you so much. Bye.